Well, hello there, and welcome to another podcast episode of Epic or Elite Professionals in Coaching. My host is Chris Arid, and it's a pleasure to have you today. And I really want to kind of just jump into this. And I am a little concerned when we think about the workplace, when we think about relationships at home, whether it's between a spouse or children or grandparents or family or community, friends, networks, whatever the case might be. There's a little word that people are overlooking today, and we do it a lot, but we're not doing it right sometimes. And when we're not doing it right, it's really becoming a problem because it's not being done correctly. That little word is called communication. And in communication, it's really absolutely essential that we are not only listening to just listen, to be an ear, but that we're listening to understand where someone else is coming from. Let me give you a case in point. Over the past couple of years, I have worked with business owners that have not done well in communicating with one another. They talk over each other, they talk at each other, they talk behind each other. They don't talk with each other. They don't sit down and have a set amount of time to where they are coming together and figuring out things, strategizing together, solving problems together, handling employee situations together. It's literally like missiles going across each other, and there's no interception point where we're sitting down and we're saying, "Listen, this is the issue. This is what really needs to be happening, and let's come to a resolution to this challenge." And I've been hearing about this, and in fact, just a couple of weeks ago was another situation of business owners not communicating with each other. Let me just take it a step further for the moment. And in addition to communicating, we've also got to be connecting with each other. And so, one of the exercises that I learned in a few of my psychology classes was that it's kind of an answer and response type thing. So let's say this. Let's say that I'm having a conversation with my wife, and she seems to be frustrated for whatever reason. And as I'm listening to understand, there needs to be a point in time where she takes a pause that I think she's done talking. And I say, "I understand this. I understand what you're saying by da 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 da. What I'm hearing is da 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 da," and so on. And I think if we were to bring that back into the workplace, if we were to bring that back into the community, there would be a lot of additional challenges solved because we're not talking over each other. We're not talking at each other. In essence, we're talking with each other. And so I just want to bring a resolution to this. As I've been listening to a few different business owners over the past couple of years, especially, we've resolved the issues. They're communicating clearly, they're communicating effectively, strategically, efficiently. They're actually being proactive in communicating. Why? Because I sat them down and said, "Listen, I'm hearing what's going on. I'm watching what's going on, and we need to have the plan that works on the both of you first." And so then the leaders of the company are setting the example of how to communicate, how to connect, and then the employees are going to watch that. You're going to facilitate that with them, or the three of us will at this point. And then I want to make sure that you guys are doing this on a regular schedule. And as they're doing this, I'm sharing with you, it becomes very, very proactive. And all of a sudden, those companies have learned the art of communicating and connecting. So here's the thing: conflict is always going to be around. Always. We're always going to have it. However, we don't have to add to it by not communicating effectively, efficiently, and strategically or proactively. So I want to offer you guys a few tips today as you're listening or you're watching on our YouTube channel. Tips on effective communication skills. I want you to choose what you think is beneficial to you. I'll sprinkle a couple of stories in with this as well. But we want a more positive outcome, because here's the thing: if we can get things at home taken care of, or things at work taken care of, again, we're not adding to the fire. So first things first, I want us to stay focused when we're communicating. I want you to be in the moment, be intentional. Cell phones, take them down, put them down. turn away from the desk if you need to, so that you're not looking at anybody else other than the person or persons that are trying to connect with you. They're trying to communicate with you. um, it's tempting. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. It's tempting to maybe look at something that you had on your computer or your phone, whatever the case might be. But I want you to be in the moment, be intentional, listen to them with purpose, if you will. Um, it's you make them important. You value that conversation, whether it's as important to you as it is to them. You're valuing them. Remember, I'm talking about the three pillars that we bring into a business: people, processes, and profit. And when we think about the people, we're educating them, we're training them to be a part of our culture. And if you want a good culture, it has to be reciprocated. You have to show it, and then it has to be given back to you. You have to expect it back from people to you, as well as show it. So there's an expectation, there's a yin and yang, there's a flow to this as well. So I want you to stay focused. And when we talk about this, often it really makes sure that in focus and not just paying attention to them, but that you're keeping them focused, or they're keeping you focused on the actual issue at hand, on the challenge or the solution at hand, not going off on a tangent, not going, well, this person did this, this, and this, and so I feel that it's right that I do it this way. No, no, no. Keep people straight and focused. Keep them narrow. Keep them on the path that they came to you for in the first place. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, I want you to listen carefully. There's a big difference between hearing and listening. A lot of times we can hear things. You can be working, you can be hearing music as you're working, or you're at home and you can hear a conversation go on and have the television going on. You're hearing the TV. Listening is active. Listening is the idea that you are engaged in that conversation to understand, not react or respond, but to understand what truly that person is sharing with you. So I want you to listen. It's about being careful. It's about not what you're going to say next, but really kind of digest it. And I get it. We live in a very fast-paced world today, but the art of communication needs to be brought back in to the home life and into the business life, as well as the community. This idea of listening carefully, being intentional, has got to be at the forefront of our mind. It's a discipline. And in that, that's a good word, a discipline. So when we're really part of being listening ears, using the two things that God has given us, it's not getting defensive. And again, it's listening to understand. You know, a couple of years ago, I worked with a company, pretty large company, and I offered a communication assessment, and they took it. And I worked with every single person on the team. There was 14, 15 people, and a group of people. The department that I was working with, that was part of that 15, was three individuals that were part of a sales team. And I really worked with them and created a plan, and allowed them to hone in on through some active engagement and conversation and connecting with people. And I'll tell you what, in the year that I worked with them, they netted an additional 35% in sales. You might be thinking, well, how could they have done that? Well, the catch is they were listening to the people they were in front of. And so the sales went up. And so from the previous year, let's say it was at $800,000, and it was 1.2 the following year that I had worked with them. So it's probably more than 30%. So all this to say is this, is when we're intentional on who we're in front of, and we're listening carefully to the needs or the challenges, we get to bring the solutions. And we're even more in tune when we're listening carefully. Even you can improve your sales numbers. Here's the third point. Try to see the point of view that someone is sharing with you. This goes back to understanding and not responding. Too much of our own focus is on our own desires, and again, we're not in tune with the person that we're conversing with. So if we're in essence, it's being empathetic, right? I'm trying to put myself in their shoes as they're coming at me, as they're sitting in front of me, as they're standing in front of me, wherever. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes from their point of view. What are they really trying to say to me? Um, a lot of times today, a lot of people feel like they're not understood. And sometimes if we were to put ourselves in their shoes, we might get a little bit of a clearer picture. And sometimes for different people, it might take a little bit longer than what we think it should give. And so as we're looking through and as we're listening through, It's about being empathetic, and by being empathetic, it's not criticizing. It's compassionate. It's saying, I understand how you're feeling, and maybe even trying to draw up a situation in your own life that might be equal to that of which someone is bringing to you. And so, in that essence, we get to be empathetic with them. We get to be active. We get to be, helping solve their challenges by bringing those solutions, by being an ear to their problems. We also get to be the voice of reason, though, as well, especially if we've established a relationship of trust. And when we do that, it becomes a whole new world for all of us that are communicating and connecting with one another. All right, here's another tip. I want us to own what's ours. It's really about taking responsibility. And if we're truly taking responsibility, then we're going to recognize that um, it's not, it's not saying that someone else has done this and so I get to do this. It's admitting when I'm wrong. I have no problem in life. I was raised this way, and I'm not saying that it's the right way, and I'm not saying it's the wrong way, but I have no problem saying, you know what, I messed up. I overlooked something, or I didn't understand, and I apologize that I didn't follow up with to gain a clearer understanding or clarity. And by doing that, and by saying that, I'm building up even a deeper level of trust with other people. Why? Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have accidents in some way, form, or fashion. And so we just need to own what's ours, take responsibility. And I'm not saying necessarily about being the bigger person. What I'm saying is show the maturity, show that you are the trusted source of knowledge, show that you can be trusted with the challenges that are being presented to you. Well, this goes into the next tip, and that's using the I message. I did this. I didn't do it. I apologize. Um, Begin the statements when you begin the statements with the I. It's about yourself and your feelings. So, for example, um, I feel frustrated when this happens. I don't say we, I'm not bringing anybody else into this. I'm coming with my own concerns, my own challenges, and I'm owning that responsibility. And so therefore I use the I message. Don't really like it when it happens this way, or I'm struggling with this, or I'm excited about that. I'm pleased that this took place. When we start to do that, we also take ownership, which then also builds a foundation of trust, as I've mentioned before, where the culture of the organization becomes a little bit more stable, a little bit more stronger, a little bit more thicker that we can build the business on. So I hope this makes sense. Here's the other thing. Another tip is this is a a lot of the times people are looking for the win in a conversation. Um, maybe it turns into an argument, and then there's even that deeper desire to win the argument. Stop it. Knock it off. Let's look for solutions that meet the needs of everybody else, that meets the needs of the team, that in those solutions that we're looking for, sometimes it means that we come up with a compromise. Not quid pro quo, but a compromise saying, okay, we're going to meet in the middle. And I'm looking for you to meet this, and I'm going to meet these deadlines as well. So when we're talking about this, it's not about winning the argument, it's not about winning the conversation. It's about being there for each other. And a lot of the times when we do this, we find that we play better as a team. And so when we take the personal responsibility, we get everyone else to take personal responsibility. We're now able to move the ball down the field, if you will, as that team. Healthy communication involves finding a resolution that both sides can be happy with. I recently read a book about negotiating. Oh, it was an amazing book. If you're interested, I would love to share the title with you. But it really is about getting down to the brass tacks of things, getting down to the crux of what someone really wants. And a lot of the superficial stuff that we see are byproducts of what someone really wants in their mind or their heart. That's what we need to get to. So when we're listening, when we're active in communicating and then further connecting with them, we really get down to really truly what it is. We go past all of that byproduct stuff. Here's what we can do too, though. When we think about coming up with a healthy compromise, sometimes We need to take a time out. Sometimes we need to get away from the situation. And we can do that so many different ways. One of my things that I like to do with people is, okay, listen, um, just had a heated discussion, not an argument. I won't put the word argument in there depending on who I'm talking with. We just had a heated discussion. You know what? Let's do this. Let's come back in a couple hours. You think about this. I'll think about that. And when we meet together in the next couple hours and I identify a certain time or day of the week, the expectation is that everyone's going to come back with cooler heads, a little bit more of an introspective on the conversation and ways that we're going to shape it moving forward. Does that make sense? So taking that time out allows us to draw back, to retreat, if you will, which is always healthy. And it allows people to cool off, or both parties to cool off, or whomever else is involved. Um, I would encourage, I mean, you hear people talk about sleeping on it, right? I'm going to go sleep on it. Um, I Sometimes that might be okay, especially in the business world. But you want to make sure that you always come back to the situation, that you always come back to that challenge, because it does need to be resolved. Unresolved challenges allows things to grow in it. One of my favorite statements is to nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud, meaning let's get it out at the root. When we get it out the root, it doesn't allow anything else to be planted or rooted in that area, at least from that plant. So sometimes we do need to sleep on it. Sometimes it might be just coming back in a couple hours. Either way, it needs to be agreeable terms. When we do this, again, we're building the trust, we're building that foundation for the business and the people in it, the culture of the organization. Also, just real quick before I move on to the last couple ones, good communication also means knowing when to take a break. You just don't want to come in hammering after people, trying to wear them down, trying to bully them. Good communication, if you're a good communicator, you will know when the time is to take the break. Taking a break, while it is a good idea, make sure, again, you always come back to it. Lastly, sometimes you need a mediator. Sometimes you need to ask for help. Sometimes both parties or whomever's involved has trouble staying focused during the conflict, or maybe it's you and a spouse, or you as a business owner with another business owner or another employee, and you need to have an outside perspective. I can't tell you how many times in 30 plus years that I have been the mediator. I enjoy it. It's something that I'm good at. And at the same time, I bring accountability to the table, as well as whomever you ask for help should bring accountability to the table. They should be exercising all of these tips that I've given you, especially knowing as a good communicator when to take a pause, when to take that time out. Because if you're asking for help, you're bringing in a trusted, unbiased party to that conversation, to that action plan. And you want to make sure that they're going to be able to see a full 360 degrees, with not taking sides to whatever's going on, and they're going to be able to come up with a clear plan of action that's going to be beneficial to everybody. Because here's what happens. The goal in effective communication should be a mutual understanding and finding a solution that is acceptable to everybody involved. It's not about being right. It's not about winning the argument. It's not about he said, she said, although we use those elements. It's really about moving the team forward. Okay? It's about moving the team forward. So, what I want you to do is this: keep in mind that it's important to know who you are speaking with and remain respectful of the other people that are involved: a spouse, a child, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, next door neighbor, employee, other business owner, maybe even a vendor. We all communicate. We communicate in various different ways through our words, body language, which is the majority of it. But in communicating, it's also active listening, not just hearing people, but listening. So set some time aside today, find some disciplines. And I would love to hear from you on maybe one of those tips that resonated with you today by making a comment in the section below, or reaching out to us via email or a phone. Thank you again for listening to this episode of this podcast, Epic. It's been my pleasure to host you today and to bring a little bit of education, as well as some communication tips that will allow you in the near future to start connecting with people. Communication isn't it. ultimately you want to connect with people. So stay tuned. There's going to be more. Hope you have a great day. And as I always say, live life with purpose.